need to tell you one of the funniest fucking stories of my life. This is the epitome of my brother and my mom having a conversation. There's always one child that's like the mediator, the translator in between two individuals. That would be me. My mom comes home from the store. She's talking. She's like, yeah, this guy tried to pick me up. He was so annoying. And my brother, listening to the conversation, is like, what do you mean this guy tried to pick you up? And my mom's like, he tried to pick me up. And my mom's like, I was walking down the aisle and this guy, he kept circling me. And I'm just at the grocery store trying to get my groceries. And he just keeps trying to pick me up. And my brother's like, what do you mean he kept trying to pick you up? And my mom's like, he just kept trying to pick me up. And so I kept walking down different aisles and he kept coming down each aisle trying to pick me up. And my brother's getting increasingly angry. He's like, what do you mean he was trying to pick you up, Ma? And she's like, I don't know. He just kept trying to pick me up. And he's like, what were you doing? What did you do? And my mom's like, I didn't do anything. I ignored him. And my brother's like, so you just ignored this guy trying to pick you up? And my mom's like, yeah. And he's like, so this guy's trying to pick you up from aisle to aisle and you're just ignoring him? And my mom's like, yeah. And he's like, why was he trying to... He's like, why was he trying to pick you up? And my mom's like, what do you mean, why? What, you don't think he could pick me up? And my brother's like, that's weird. This guy's a weirdo. Like, what the fuck? And I'm sitting there the whole time, understanding that each person is explaining themselves so fucking clearly, but neither of them understand each other at all. And I'm laughing, and I tell my mom, I'm like, Mom, he doesn't understand what you're saying. And she's like, what do you mean? I'm like, Mom, he doesn't understand what you're saying. And my brother's like, I understand what you're saying. He's like, that guy's weird. He's like, you should have called somebody. And I tell my brother, I'm like, pick her up. She's trying to hit on her. He's not trying to physically lift her from aisle to aisle. And then my mom realizes what just happened and she lost it. She's like, you thought some guy was following me from aisle to aisle trying to lift me up?
Am I wrong for how payment was handled at my wedding? I am genuinely conflicted on this as I see both sides, so getting feedback from all of you. I recently got married at a venue about 200 miles away from where I live, so many things were done virtually and I hadn't met many of these people in person that I planned the wedding with. For payments, our venue required a deposit, a payment 6 months before our wedding date, then a final payment once the charges were finalized, based on headcount. Our first two payments were made as scheduled with no issues. We finalized our headcount and settled on a final amount for all services rendered. The final amount was around $15,000. The vendor allowed payment through a check by mail or someone dropping off the check in person. Being out of state, we opted for option 2. I sent out a check to the venue through online bill pay and got confirmation the payment was to be delivered by the day of the wedding, which was a Saturday. I had a confirmation number from my bank payment was sent and money was taken out of my account. The wedding was wonderful and I enjoyed the next day, Sunday, with my husband. We received a text from the vendor and she said she still hadn't gotten the check. I looked at my bank account and see that the check was sent with a delivery date of the next day, Monday. I shared a screenshot of this with the vendor, including the confirmation number. I offered to call my bank with her on the line as confirmation. I offered to Venmo or Zelle her the money. She insisted on a physical check, which I do not have as I am out of town. She told us she would withhold our items left behind, unused favors, the top of our cake, guest book, other items. I explained again how the check would be there tomorrow and I offered Venmo or Zelle again and she refused to accept anything except a physical check. I had to spend over 30 minutes on the phone with my bank to stop payment on the check, which cost me $50. Then I had to transfer money to my mom so her check would clear. Then I had to drive back to my mom's house to physically get the check, which was 30 minutes away, then come back to the venue to hand deliver the check, which was another 45. When we got to the venue, the manager, not the person I had been texting with, thanked me for the check and told me not to worry as it would be put in the lockbox and they don't cash checks until Tuesday. At this point, I asked why I had to spend the day after my wedding running around town when my check wouldn't be cashed for a few days and the original check was due tomorrow. We argued back and forth, no yelling, just trying to understand what happened. I 100% understand and agree that the vendor must be paid for services rendered, but I am frustrated I have to spend the morning after my wedding running around doing this, only to learn it wouldn't be cashed until Tuesday, after my payment was set to arrive. Am I the asshole for being upset that I had to spend my morning like this and arguing with the manager when I dropped off the check?
A story time about how I did the nasty with somebody else's boyfriend. Yup.
Anyway, so a little background information. I was 15 years old and in 9th grade. But back in 6th grade, I met this boy who we're gonna call Darren. And you know, back then, him and I had a little crush on each other, but we were too scared to tell each other. So nothing ever came of it. Even though I don't know what would have came of that because we were literally in 6th grade. Maybe a 2-day relationship, who knows? Anyways, so him and I kept in touch. Obviously, we weren't like besties, but you know, we would catch up here and there and we would talk to other people as well. Well, fast forward to 7th grade. That was a pretty rough year for me. What happened, you might be asking? Well, I had been deemed the school thought because my news got sent around.
Kim, there's people that are dying.
And now all of these guys only wanted to do the nasty with me. The worst part is like I was still super innocent, right? I only sent them because I really liked this kid. And it was one of those situations where I felt pressured to send them because I didn't want him getting bored of me and then breaking up with me or stop talking to me. Because if I'm not gonna send them, somebody else will. So yeah, worst mistake of my life. Anyways, fast forward to January of 2021. Darren puts on his Snapchat, girl best friend with a question mark. You're a hoe. Okay? Like, just say you want some pussy and get it over with. Anyway, so my lonely, desperate ass swipes up and now him and I start talking. Now, he did have a girlfriend at the time, but they ended up breaking up, which I'm thinking to myself, thank God, because bitch. I realized that I caught feelings for him real quick. But then a week later, what does he do? He goes and gets a girlfriend. Like, I just really felt like the universe was working against me in every single way possible. Anyway, so him and I continue to talk over the next 2 or 3 months, just not in the way that I was hoping we would be talking, if you know what I mean. But during March, just before my 15th birthday, him and I had hung out at the park and tell me why this man literally kissed me. And then he says to me, I've been waiting 3 years to do that. Like, oh, okay. Pretty funny that you say that because you had a girlfriend every other freaking week. But obviously I wasn't thinking this at the time. So yes, him and I made out. And I know y'all are wondering, well, did he have a girlfriend at this time? He did. And yes, I knew it was wrong, but did I care? No. The answer is no, not really. Now see, this situation right here is what I would call a they problem, right? Because meaning him and his girl collectively have some things that they need to work on within their relationship. That does not involve me. As far as I'm concerned, I'm perfect. They have the issues, not me. Besides, I wasn't friends with this girl, so I owed her no loyalty. Sorry, bae. Anyways, so fast forward a week after my birthday, I decided to invite Darren over, where my very strict and very religious family and I lived. But I didn't really care about the rules, so that whole no sex before marriage thing, totally out the window. I did not care. Like, it's the 21st century. That doesn't apply to us. Anyway, so he ended up bringing his friend with him, but Darren and I ended up going in the other room and we did the thing. We did. And then that whole week, his friend was hitting me up, so I ended up inviting his friend over that weekend, but his friend and I literally just made out. We didn't do anything else. Well, fast forward a month, Darren came over for the second time. Well, the second and last time. And you know, of course, we do the nasty. And after he left, I was feeling super insecure because I really liked him, but he wouldn't leave his girl for me. So me being upset and emotional, what do? I threatened him. I tell him that either he's gonna break up with his girlfriend or I'm gonna tell her everything. And then guess what he did? He blocked me. Yep. And when I say he blocked me on everything. He blocked me on his socials, he blocked me on her socials. Like, he was not playing games with me at all. But it's like, if you love your girl that much, why are you doing shit with me?
I know I be doing some fucked up things. What I do? But you did a fucked up bird thing.
That's the real question here. Like, be so for real. But to be honest, I think she found out right away because they broke up literally 2 days later. But fast fast forward, both of them are super on and off still. And to be honest, I don't really think about him too much anymore because I have a new man and he is literally better than Darren in every single way possible. Even better in bed. Moral of the story, y'all, it is not about the size of the boat, it's about the motion in the ocean. I'm just kidding. That was a quote that was left at the end of this story time. Y'all crack me up.
A young couple was getting ready to give birth to their first child, and they had determined that the child should not be named until after it was born, so that they could meet it and make the name based on that first magical moment. On the day of the birth, a beautiful baby girl was born and the parents were instantly smitten. "It's love," said the mother. "All I can think when I gaze on this precious child is love. That needs to be her name." The father was not on board. "We can't name her Love. That sort of name will cause a world of problems for her down the road. How about a Jessica or a Jane?" And the two parents fought. During a break in the fighting, the father went out to go to the bathroom, during which time a nurse came into the room and the mother added the name Love to the birth certificate. When the dad learned about this, he was upset, but he couldn't do anything about it. Resigned, he reasoned that he would love his daughter regardless of the name. The first few years of the child's life were pure bliss. However, she came home from her first day of kindergarten with tears streaming down her cheeks. When the parents asked what was wrong, Love said through her sobs, the other kids at school. They wouldn't stop laughing at my name." Breaks down, the mother and father did their best to console Love, telling her that things would change over time, but they didn't change for the better. The classmates only became more cruel with time. The taunting became merciless throughout elementary school, with junior high becoming unbearable. Love's grades suffered and she withdrew into isolation. High school was hell on earth for the girl, with the cliquishness of high school bearing down on her every sad day of her life. One night as dinner was being prepared, Love came into the kitchen, silently placed a sad kiss on her father's forehead, cast a piercing glare at her mother, and walked back to her room. While the puzzled parents were looking at each other as if to say, "What was that all about?" They heard a terrible noise from Love's room, a loud blam followed by a thudding to the floor. As they feared, they raced into Love's room to see the teenager clutching a pistol in her hand, with the self-inflicted wound pumping blood out of her chest. Following a brief period of denial where they couldn't accept what was unfolding, anger set in for the father. He bitterly turned to his wife and yelled at her, "Shot through the heart, and you're to blame. Darling, you gave Love a bad name." My abusive ex-girlfriend is getting married, so I told her fiancé about the trauma she put me through in our relationship. My relationship with my ex-girlfriend was a nightmare to say the least. She had exhaustingly low self-esteem, asked for reassurance from me about her looks and weight multiple times per day, and if I didn't tell her what she wanted to hear she would gaslight and manipulate me to make me feel guilty. She actually gained 30 pounds over the course of a month at this point, then asked me if I thought she put some weight on. I told her yes, and she proceeded to cry and call me an a-hole. There were other things too. If I did not choose spending time with her over visiting a family member in hospital, I didn't care about her. She had a quota for the amount of times I had to tell her I loved her throughout the day, which was 10. She would keep track and by the end of the night if I had not reached that number she would cry and refuse to tell me the reason that she cried. I didn't realize at the time, but after reading stuff online and listening to some podcasts, I realized her behavior was very emotionally abusive. We dated for around 1 year and she ended up breaking up with me due to her mental health. This was through high school and I never saw her after it. Well, recently there was a high school reunion. I found out she would be there so I decided to go. She hadn't changed much, like a rich British person she had gained many pounds and if anything was now morbidly obese. She said hi to me as if nothing had happened and proceeded to make small talk with me. It really bothered me that she was pretending nothing happened between us so I asked if we could talk privately. I told her about how I felt about the way she treated me and was abusive towards me when we were dating. She said that she was going through a tough time with her self-confidence and apologized for taking it out on me. She also said ever since she met her current partner she was feeling more confident about herself. She then told me they were engaged which also came as a shock to me. I asked her if she had told him about us and how she treated me when we were dating. She said she mentioned her past relationships to him but didn't share all the details. I told her she needs to tell him about how she was abusive to me so that he knows who he is marrying. At this point she made up some excuse and ran away from the conversation. I felt that the new partner should know what he's getting into. She is still a beluga and has not made any effort to change or improve herself, and probably has the same insecurities. I imagined how this man will have a terrible marriage. So after the party I used a friend's account to find her fiancé and I sent him a message detailing the things she did when we were dating in high school. He responded with something like asking me to stop bothering them. It's been about a week since I did this and now I'm getting bombarded with messages from high school friends calling me a creep and an a-hole. I don't understand how people can side with her when she was the one being abusive.
My neighbor is in love with my husband. He is in love with her 16-year-old daughter. The problems in mine and my husband's marriage started when our new neighbor moved in a few months ago. She was his childhood best friend and was also his very first kiss. She was very quick to get to know him again, and started hanging around him a lot. It made me uncomfortable to say the least. They are friends and he always jumps out of his way to help her, and she treats him like a best friend who she has a crush on. One time he literally canceled a date because she asked him to babysit her baby niece. He treats her like his best friend too, and does not treat me the same way. The neighbor has 7 kids and 4 live with her. During the summer she started asking him to take her 16-year-old daughter fishing with him. That is when the suspicious stuff started. He took the daughter on one-on-one fishing trips every single week. Without fail it made me uncomfortable and I asked him to stop but he never would. One strange thing that baffled me: if she gave him my husband permission to use a ladder to climb onto her rooftop so he and her daughter can look at the stars together. I have caught him doing this many times. Last week I blew up at him when I saw him texting her. I asked him what he was doing and he quickly put his phone away. I demanded he show me the texts as I had seen them texting beforehand, and it took a lot of arguing for him to hand me the phone. There I saw it, talks of having intimacy again, explicit pics, dirty texts and more. I did not react. I think I went pale as the shock of what I saw consumed me. I gave him back his phone and went to puke. While in the bathroom I contacted my mother and have been staying with her for the last week. I reported my husband to the police too. I am now receiving calls and texts from our neighbor for ruining my husband's life.
Owning a V card past the age of 20 is embarrassing and you should feel like a loser because of it. I often read on the internet about people who are older V card owners like me. We often feel bad about being V card owners and never having had a relationship. And I often also read people who tell them that it is not a big deal, that intimacy is not that important, that they should focus on other things, that they love themselves, that they wait for the right person. But I think those answers are downright stupid, especially when we talk about people who are already at an age where it is not so common to be a virgin and never have had a partner. They do not take into account what intimacy and relationships or the lack of them mean and can cause for most people. There is something wrong with being a V card owner after 20, believe it or not. Unless you're waiting for marriage. But if you are over 20 years old, and have genuinely tried your best to lose your V card, and have not been able to pull a single 2 out of 10 beluga who smells like Ritz crackers and onions, my brother, you're doing something wrong. Not being able to have those experiences, seeing that people around us have them all the time and not knowing if we will ever be able to experience the same thing is very frustrating. It makes us feel lonely and with the feeling that something is missing, something that professional achievements, friendships or hobbies cannot offer. And it's our fault, it is something we are doing. There are people who for whatever reason are in their mid-20s, reach their 30s or even 40s and have never even heard someone tell them that they love them. These people exist and it is very hard not only to have to face that with each passing day but to the problem that every time you express these problems people tell you that it is not a big deal. I'm not saying that sex and relationships are the only thing that matters in life, nor that you have to obsess over losing your V card, but come on bro. It's 2 that smells like Ritz crackers and onions. I rebelled against my tyrant teacher in elementary school and got her fired. So one notoriously mean teacher banned running at my elementary school. If you ran during recess, you'd be sitting on the bench for the rest of the break. What led to this was my friend running into a teacher accidentally while we were playing tag. She didn't fall or anything, but it was probably a bit of a surprise. This prompted Ms. Mean to punish the whole school. So she self-righteously banned running. Probably because she was fat herself and couldn't run. Anyway, the next day, Ms. Mean met with all the 5th grade classes to justify her decision. She said people only need 1 hour of exercise a week to be healthy and there was no need to run during break time. It was ridiculously stupid, and that's not any sort of justification for the decision. The tension in the room was palpable and you could sense that hatred for her began spreading immediately. My 5th grade teacher just sat at his desk, chuckling at the sheer ridiculous nature of the whole thing. The next day, the entire 4th grade and 5th grade sat down by the play structure for the entirety of recess. When they told us to stop sitting together via megaphone, everyone walked around the perimeter of the kickball field and sang well-known songs together. My friends and I made a ton of flyers to bring back running. While we were handing them out before school, the principal grabbed one. We thought we were in huge trouble. It turns out the principal was never told about this ban on running. The mean old lady was taken off yard duty. She was then fired next year for sending explicit pics to one of the 6th graders via social media.